This video is to discuss writing linear equations. In this example, you have a line that passes through 2 points and you want to write an equation that represents line GH. So there are different forms of a linear equation. There's slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. You also have standard form, which is ax plus by equals c. And a, b, and c are integers, but they don't by themselves represent any one value like the slope and the y-intercept. So it's not as telling. You have to do something to standard form to be able to determine the slope and the y-intercept. And then we also have point slope form, which is y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. This is just a variation of slope-intercept form that allows you to substitute the slope and a point that's not the y-intercept so that you could simplify and get back to slope-intercept form. So if you're given just two random points where neither one of them are the y-intercept, you want to start off by finding the slope. So y sub 2 minus y sub 1, 9 minus 5, over x sub 2 minus x sub 1, 6 minus 2. So in this example, we get a slope of 4 over 4, which is positive 1. So we know the slope is 1. Now we can go back and look at our point slope form and use the slope for m, and either one of these ordered pairs as our x sub 1 and y sub 1 value. So I'm just going to pick the first one, and I'm going to substitute into y minus x sub 1, y sub 1. So my y sub 1 value is 5, so y minus 5 equals the slope, which is 1, times x minus x sub 1, which is 2. So I just substituted the x sub 1 and the y sub 1 value into my point slope formula. Now I can distribute 1x minus 2 equals y minus 5, and then solve for y, because when you solve for y, you're getting it into y equals, which is your slope-intercept form, which is your most telling form of a linear equation. So to solve for y, we need to add 5 to both sides. So y equals 1x plus 3 would be the slope-intercept form equation. Here's another example, but this example is asking you to write the standard form of the equation for a line, and they've already given you the point slope form. So like we saw in the previous problem, we can take our point slope form and simplify it. That would be my first step here. I'm going to distribute and get 1/4 times x minus 1/4 times 12 over 1, which is 12 over 4, which is 3. So 1/4 times 12 is 3, equals y minus 1. We can go ahead and get it into y equals form by adding 1 to both sides. So now we have y equals 1/4 x minus 2. Standard form is when you write ax plus by equals c. So we want our x term and our y term on the same side of the equal sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 1/4 x so that I've moved it on the same side with y. So negative 1/4 x plus y equals the constant, which is negative 2. Now that will not be one of your answer choices, because when you write an equation in standard form, all of the coefficients, so negative 1/4 This one has a coefficient of 1, and then -2. They all have to be integers. So you have to multiply both sides of your equal sign by something so that you have an integer. And not just an integer for this a term, but a positive integer, meaning a positive whole number. So what can we multiply -1/4 by so that we're left with a whole number that's positive? Well, if we multiply by a negative, then we'll get a positive. And if we multiply by the denominator, 4, -4 times -1/4 is equal to 4/4, which is 1. So that would cancel out the denominator and cancel out the negative, leaving me with 1x, or just x. Then you can't multiply one term without distributing it to both sides of the equal sign. So -4 times +1y is -4y, and then multiply the other side of the equal sign by -4, and we get 8. So that would be our standard form equation. So here's a word problem where they are giving us some information, but not necessarily the slope and the y-intercept. So when we look at what we're trying to write an equation for, we're trying to write an equation for cost as a function of x, the number of hours. Now, it's $3 to rent skates for the day, and we want to know the cost dependent on the number of hours. So that $3 to rent skates for the day is a y-intercept, which can be written for 0 hours, it costs $3. So if I skate for 0 hours, I would still pay $3 to rent the skates. And if Jillian rented skates and skated for 3 hours and was charged $21, then we could determine that 3,21 is also an ordered pair that needs to work with our equation. So let's find the slope. If we find the slope, 21 minus 3 over 3 minus 0 is equal to 18 over 3, which is 6. So doing this gave me the cost per hour, the slope. So now I know that my cost is determined by charging $6 per hour plus a $3 rental fee. Just a hint on how you would compare these two functions. First, you want to identify what does $225 per month represent for TEM. Per being a keyword that leads you to 225 times the number of months. So 225 is the slope. And then you see that you're given an ordered pair. After 8 months, the bank account has $4,580. So we have the slope and we have a point. If we substituted this into point slope form and simplified, then we would be able to determine the slope and the y-intercept. Be sure to simplify. So what they've given you for Paul is the point slope form. If you simplify by distributing and then getting y by itself, then you would also be able to determine the slope and y-intercept, and you would easily be able to compare that to TEM.